Hey everybody, and welcome to Wrestle Line, and this is the Ken Shamrock Part 2. I'm your host John Scott, joined this week, as I always am, each and every week, by Matt Essex. Matt, how you doing, and ready to go for Shamrock Part 2?
Yeah, I'm doing good, thanks, and I'm looking forward to getting into this a bit more, and look forward to hearing some more about the guy himself.
Yeah, guys, before we start on this part 2, just want to give you guys a quick reminder that you can hit us up on Facebook. Simply search us out at Wrestle Line Podcast. You should get us easily up there. We've got an established page there if you want to find out anything coming in the coming weeks. All the news will be up there, all the feeds and everything else. Also, we're also set up on Twitter as well. You can hit us up at Wrestle Line. And all the different various platforms that you can listen to us on now. Of course, you can listen to us on iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Podcast Addict, SoundCloud, iTunes, of course. All these different platforms. I'm sure there's even more than that you guys can listen to this stuff on. And don't forget YouTube as well, for that matter. So let's get straight into this. And we hit in 1998 now with Ken Shamrock. And early on in January of '98, it's basically set up now, Matt, where they're basically going to, imposing a match between the whole idea of Rocky Maivia at the time, of course, who would later become The Rock, for a match at the Royal Rumble. This is going to be for the Intercontinental Championship. This comes about on a Raw in mid-January where they set this up, and basically the whole kind of narrative to the storyline, just for everybody out there, is that Maivia challenges Shamrock to a match at the Royal Rumble, but Karma and Farouk got mad at him for doing it. So this is in just to set the setup of where we are in all the timeline here. This is obviously Nation of Domination. And it was kind of like, I enjoyed, I'm sure we'll cover this in long form at some point, but I enjoyed the whole Nation of Domination, this whole, kind of who was the big dog in the Nation of Domination. Is it the young lion, Rocky Maivia, or is it, the old lion that had sort of steered the ship for so long in Nation of Domination, which of course was Farouk. And I kind of enjoyed all that between them, and that whole... will he turn, will he not turn? And obviously Ken Shamrock, as the babyface, is kind of positioned to get that match for the Intercontinental Championship at the Royal Rumble. So it was kind of good time. Also, it's reported in the Wrestling Observer around this time as well. And of course, just like last time, I said we'd cover him quite a bit because I'm not sure of any other time we'll really sort of speak about Dan Severn in long form. So... it's reported that WWF is now expecting that Dan Severn will be signing a contract. The sides have apparently agreed to both money and terms and storylines. Matt, we spoke obviously in brief about Dan Severn coming into the WWF, and of course the interesting thing is here it's almost like it's been a good... I want to say 10 months of negotiating between Dan Severn and the WWF, but it's quite interesting, Matt, that WWF were so hell-bent on getting Severn in. A lot of the reports are saying the reason it wasn't working wasn't anything to do with money, it was more down to storylines, which I guess I can kind of believe to a certain extent if Severn's actually... If Severn is a competitor and he's maybe thinking, well, hang on, I want to be treated in a certain way or a certain manner. I don't want to kind of have a gimmick stigma on me. But were you surprised? I know we touched on this last time, Matt. But were you surprised that Severn was sort of like such a go-get for WWF at that time, considering how long they pursued it for by now, even at this point?
No, I'm not surprised, really. I guess they saw him as a great talent. I guess they had some real strong plans about what they could do with the guy as well.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, though, whether, the negotiations went on this long because it may have been more a case of, him wanting to see what they were doing with Shamrock, being that was the first kind of experimental dip into this new kind of crossover.
Sure.
And see, if the storylines panned out well, then well on those terms, then perhaps he may have jumped at the chance, perhaps. But I guess I'm not entirely surprised at all that the WWE wanted him that badly. I mean, maybe they thought they could come up with some good matches between Shamrock and himself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's also reported around this time as well that Ken Shamrock is training with the idea of possibly doing a UFC show in May of '98. This whole idea would be that he would go up in a Tokyo match in Japan to face a guy actually we mentioned on our last show towards the end, which is Takeda. That would be, I mean, it's reported that WWF were not keen on the idea of Shamrock doing that. But, at this point, UFC is kind of toying with that idea that this could happen. So that was in the news at the time. It's also worth reporting, Matt, that Shamrock won Rookie of the Year of 1997 on his debut year. And also that was in the, I believe, PWI, and in the Wrestling Observer, he was the most improved wrestler of 97 as well. So, fairly doing well there for a rookie year. As we go further on now to into January, here's the big announcement, I guess, that everybody will definitely remember around this time in 1998, is that there was a tremendous amount of mainstream media steaming from the WWF's announcement that they were negotiating for none other than Iron Mike Tyson to be a part of WrestleMania. The appearance of Don King doing a taped interview on the 5th of the first Raw, which, by the way, I just did not know that happened. I had to go back to check that out, which it did, which was quite a big scoop, really, I suppose, for that time for WWF at Raw. Signifies that there has been some sort of an agreement between the two sides, already reached. Exactly what that entails is not known yet. Tyson's match will or might be real, and that's what they're reporting. That at this point that they're saying that obviously Tyson has been signed to actually wrestle or fight, and there's speculation around this time to who it might be. The Wrestling Observer and Meltzer report that at the moment it's penciled in that Ken Shamrock is a particular possibility, being that the biggest star in the entire industry of mixed martial arts. However, he's not yet risen to the top of the WWF, so this would leave a big question mark. So it's very interesting around this time, Matt, that when WWF are obviously going for Iron Mike Tyson, who arguably. They put this big banner on him that he was the baddest man on the planet, and I suppose, man, you've got to remember we are at 98, and only 7-8 months before he'd done the whole thing with Holyfield, where the whole ear incident happened. So Tyson at this point is a huge get for the WWF, and this is obviously from what we now know, this obviously has a massive shift towards WWF's at that time momentum in the Monday Night Wars. Considering everyone in the mainstream as far as wrestling, that everyone's pointing towards a match, would you have been keen on the idea with Ken Shamrock at that time, Matt? Would that have seemed like the most likely matchup that WWF could do, if, of course, that was the whole agreement in itself that WWF was going to have Tyson wrestle?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would have enjoyed that, and I think he would even have an interesting tagline on it, wouldn't it? Like the baddest man on the planet versus the world's most dangerous man. I'm sure they could set it on that, and yeah, I mean, the spotlight that Tyson had at that time was huge, one of the most, not in just in sports, but probably one of the most famous men on the planet at the time, just from the kind of exposure he was getting. And, shifting any of that light into the WWE, or especially with an in-the-ring actual match, would have been just humongous.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, it's only until I went back on it, it all seemed to make sense that it would be Shamrock. But it's interesting to see the way they went with it. I mean, nobody, I guess, expected the whole what happened on Raw and how good that was between him and Austin. But at that point, I think if they were going to do some kind of like half shoot fight. Who else could you kind of have? I mean, it would have been odd to have, say, even a Steve Austin and Tyson to a certain extent, just because I think the styles, but I think the whole style of sort of like, branding Shamrock, as you say, Matt, as the world's most dangerous and the world's baddest, just would have been a perfect tagline. Okay, so let's we now speed up now to the Royal Rumble itself in 1998. This, of course, is headlined with the Rumble itself and Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker that year. The Wrestling Observer fans, they vote on the Shawn Michaels Undertaker match as the best match of the night. Shamrock and Rocky Maivia comes in a close second, so that's worth pointing out there. Worth pointing out in this one that Rocky Maivia ends up beating Ken Shamrock in 10 minutes 53 seconds via DQ to retain the IC title. Meltzer reports Maivia, who actually spent his childhood living in this area, which was, of course, where the Rumble come from at the time. Around this time was in Chicago and all the rest of it. I mean, the match itself. I mean, I watched this one back. I kind of thought it was a pretty decent match. And Meltzer at the time, he rates it just 3 stars. So it's neither bad or good, but I kind of rate it a little bit more than that. I'd probably say it's a good 3.5 for me on this one. And obviously at the end of this one, it's it's a kind of setup where it is a DQ. They're still protecting Shamrock on this finish. There's no doubt about that. The whole way this goes down at the end, of course, is that literally towards the end you've got the Nation of Domination that come out there sort of towards the end. There's a belly. Shamrock then gives a belly to belly suplex, then goes into the ankle lock. The ref breaks it up, somewhat similar to Shamrock's SummerSlam finish, which would have been the year before when he fought the Bulldog. And Meltzer replies in brackets here. It made me laugh just how you could see the crowd laughing their heads off when Ken Shamrock attacks the ref. So it's obviously becoming quite a big part. And that whole thing, Matt, about beating the refs up after a match obviously got over quite fast after the whole Bulldog incident of SummerSlam. And that was used quite a lot in Shamrock's matches. Do you think that was a smart move at that time? Because, I mean, it seemed like, how Austin was getting those reactions? It seemed kind of like that, like you weren't supposed to, but fans were loving it anyway.
Yeah, it's kind of like that anti-authority figure, isn't it? Where, you can't be controlled and you can, do things by your own rules. Yeah, I guess that kind of works. And they had that whole kind of thing where they worked up to where he's going to snap and all of that, didn't they? And that he would reach a state where he was uncontrollable. So I guess it all played into that. Yeah.
When was the last time you saw that match, Matt? Can you remember at all? Anything about that one at the Royal Rumble?
Yeah, probably a good few years ago, but I think it was a pretty good match actually. Like you said before, you didn't get terrible ratings through that, and I would have said it was one of the better matches that night. Sure.
Well, Shamrock is not only in action once; he's in action twice because he has also entered into the Royal Rumble. However, it's pretty much a given here, really, as far as Ken Shamrock in this, that he's kind of sort of a little bit a part of the storyline, what's going on. I mean, he's not going out there as sort of a guy that you think, oh yeah, he's definitely got a chance of winning. When Shamrock comes in, they try to create an Austin storyline as Jerry Lawler climbed in to have the back of Shamrock, and then Shamrock starts to beat up Austin, and Austin wouldn't be able to come out, etc., etc. They build to a spot where Shamrock knocked Kurgan off his feet, It's worth pointing out that Kurgan had never been off his feet before. This got quite a big rise from the crowd. Shortly after, however, Shamrock is eliminated by Rocky Maivia, and I've got to say, when I watched this one back, there was like a 0